She never expected humiliation to sound so quiet. It didn't arrive with shouting or accusations hurled across the room. It didn't demand attention. It slipped in softly, polite, measured, almost gentle. Lena Carver stood beneath the amber glow of the restaurant's chandelier, the light catching in the glass she held but never drank from. Her fingers were clenched tight around it, not because she needed the support, but because letting go felt dangerous. The room around her was full, too full. Friends, colleagues, former well-wishers who once raised glasses to her engagement and promised they'd be there on her wedding day. Now they leaned in, listening. At the center of it all stood Marco, her ex, the man who had once held her hands and promised certainty. The man who now looked at her with something dangerously close to amusement. "I don't love you," he said calmly. Not loudly, not angrily, just clearly enough for everyone to hear. "I never did." The words didn't echo. They didn't need to. They landed exactly where he intended. Clean, precise, impossible to misunderstand. The silence that followed felt heavier than sound. Lena felt her chest hollow out, as if something essential had been quietly removed. But she didn't cry. She didn't gasp. She didn't ask him why. She stood there, spine straight, chin lifted, absorbing the moment without giving him the satisfaction of reaction. She had learned how to do that a long time ago. Raised by a widowed mother who worked double shifts and still came home exhausted, Lena grew up watching pain be swallowed whole. There was no room for spectacle in their lives. No room for breaking down. You endured, you adapted, you kept going. So Lena learned early how to be strong quietly. She built her life the same way, brick by brick. Graduate school paid for with scholarships and late nights. A careful career in art restoration that demanded patience and precision. Relationships approached with loyalty and belief. She thought love was something you earned by being good, by being steady, by staying. Marco knew that. That was why he chose this moment. That was why he chose witnesses. He smiled, a small, nervous laugh escaping him when Lena didn't respond. "She's not worth fighting for," he added, as if clarifying a misunderstanding, as if explaining something obvious. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Someone cleared their throat. No one interrupted. Lena felt the sting then, not just of rejection, but of being made small in public, of being reduced to a lesson, a warning, an example. But she didn't move. She didn't fold. And that restraint did something dangerous, because humiliation, when endured with dignity, has a way of summoning predators. At the far end of the room, where the light faded into shadow, sat a man no one approached unless invited. Enrico Vitali. His presence didn't announce itself. It didn't need to. Power rarely does. It settles, it waits, it watches. He hadn't planned to be here. This wasn't his world. This world of chandeliers and wine glasses and polite cruelty. Business had dragged him above ground tonight, out of warehouses and negotiations that ended in blood, into a room filled with lies dressed as civility. Enrico had built his empire on discipline, on loyalty, on the understanding that mercy was a liability, and love was an illusion that got men killed. Until he watched Lena stand there. She didn't beg. She didn't break. She absorbed cruelty meant to destroy her, and remained intact. Something in him shifted. Enrico stood. The room felt it before it understood it. Conversations died mid-sentence. Laughter evaporated. Heads turned instinctively, as if everyone suddenly remembered exactly who he was. Enrico moved through the space with unhurried certainty, each step deliberate, each second stretching the tension tighter. He stopped beside Lena, close enough that she felt warmth radiating from him. Danger, control, protection wrapped in threat. Marco's face drained of color. He knew, everyone did. You didn't refuse Enrico Vitali. You didn't insult something he claimed. Enrico looked at Marco once, just once, and that was enough. Then he spoke. "Then she's mine." 3 words. No explanation, no apology, no smile. They fell into the silence like a verdict. Marco tried to laugh it off, but the sound fractured halfway out. His confidence collapsed under the weight of what he'd just done. Lena turned slightly, shock finally breaking through her composure. She opened her mouth to protest, to deny, to say she wasn't anyone's anything, but Enrico's hand settled at the small of her back. Not rough, not gentle, possessive, steady. A warning. A promise. The room exhaled in fear, and as Enrico guided her forward, as doors opened and space cleared instinctively around them, Lena realized something terrifying and irreversible. Her life had just split in two, and whatever waited on the other side of those 3 words, there was no going back. The words didn't echo. They didn't need to. They settled into the room like smoke, seeping into every corner, every mind. People understood the danger instinctively. The way prey understands a shadow has moved the wrong way. Then she's mine. Marco's face went pale, not the dramatic kind of fear, but the quiet, internal kind. The kind that comes when a man realizes too late that he has misjudged the scale of the consequences. His mouth opened as if to speak, to laugh it off, to soften what had just happened. But no sound came out, because Enrico Vitale didn't repeat himself. Lena felt the hand at her back more clearly now. It wasn't tight, it wasn't cruel, it was immovable. A boundary drawn without asking her permission. A statement made not just to Marco, but to everyone watching. The room shifted around them. People stepped back without being told to. Chairs scraped softly. Glasses were set down. No one wanted to be close to this moment anymore. Not when history was being rewritten in real time. Marco swallowed. He tried to smile, but his lips trembled. I didn't mean... Enrico didn't look at him. Marco no longer existed. Enrico's attention remained fixed forward, his presence shielding Lena from the stares that suddenly felt dangerous instead of curious. His voice, when he spoke again, was low and calm, meant only for her. "Walk," he said. It wasn't a request. Lena's legs moved before her thoughts caught up. Shock carried her forward, through the stunned crowd, through the wide doors that opened as if the building itself knew better than to resist him. Outside, the night air hit her skin, cool and sharp, breaking the spell just enough for panic to bloom. Black cars waited at the curb, engines already running. Doors opened in silent unison. Men stepped aside, eyes lowered, movements precise. This wasn't protection, this was infrastructure. Lena stopped walking. "I didn't agree to this," she said, the words finally tearing free. Her voice didn't shake, but it came close. Enrico turned to face her for the first time. Up close, he was more intimidating than she'd expected. Not because of size or aggression, but because of control. His expression gave nothing away. His eyes held hers steadily, measuring rather than consuming. "You didn't need to," he replied. That was the moment the fear truly set in, because he wasn't pretending this was temporary. He gestured toward the car. "Get in." Lena hesitated. Inside the restaurant, Marco was still standing where she'd left him, small now, irrelevant, already fading from the center of his own cruelty. A strange grief flickered in her chest, not for the man, but for the life she thought she was living just minutes ago. She got into the car. The door closed with a sound that felt final. As the vehicle pulled away, the city lights streaked past the windows, blurring into something unreal. Lena sat rigid, hands folded in her lap, trying to slow her breathing. Enrico sat across from her, his posture relaxed, as if this were an ordinary ride. He studied her openly now, not like a man admiring beauty, but like someone assessing damage. "You held yourself well," he said. It wasn't praise, it was observation. Lena laughed softly once. "I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice," Enrico replied. "You just don't always like the alternatives." Silence filled the car again. Lena finally looked at him. "Why did you do that?" Enrico didn't answer immediately. The city rolled on outside, indifferent to the fact that her world had already tilted off its axis. "Because he made you a target," Enrico said at last. Lena frowned. "He humiliated me. He exposed you," Enrico corrected. "There's a difference." Her stomach tightened. "Exposed me to what?" Enrico's gaze sharpened. Not cruel, not kind. Honest. "You," he said, "were already being watched." The words landed heavier than Marco's ever had. Lena's pulse spiked. "That's not possible. I'm not involved in anything. I'm an art restorer. I go to work. I go home." Enrico inclined his head slightly. So did your father. The name of a man long buried cracked something open inside her. My father is dead, Lena said quietly. Yes, Enrico agreed. And some debts don't die with the men who owe them. The car slowed as they pulled into an underground garage. Concrete swallowed sound. The door opened again, and suddenly there were walls instead of streets. Guards instead of strangers. Lena stepped out, heart pounding. You're not in danger right this second, Enrico said, as if sensing her fear. But tonight changed things. How? She demanded. Enrico looked at her then, not as an asset, not as leverage, but as something dangerously human. Because now, he said, everyone knows I noticed you. Lena felt cold settle into her bones. She had spent years believing invisibility was safety. Now she understood the truth. Being seen by the wrong man was far more dangerous than being humiliated by the right one. And Enrico Vitale didn't notice things unless they mattered. The building was quiet in the way only guarded places ever were, not peaceful, controlled. Lena became aware of it the moment she stepped out of the car, the absence of random sound, the deliberate stillness. No traffic noise filtered in. No neighbors argued through thin walls. Even her footsteps felt muted against polished stone. This was not a place people wandered into by accident. Enrico walked ahead of her, not checking to see if she followed. He didn't need to. Men moved out of his way without being asked. Doors opened before he reached them. Everything about the space responded to his presence as if it were trained to do so. Lena followed because stopping felt pointless. They entered a private elevator. The doors slid shut, sealing them into silence. Numbers rose steadily, each floor carrying her farther away from the life she recognized. She felt something tighten in her chest. This doesn't make sense, she said finally. You can't just decide things like this. Enrico glanced at her, expression unreadable. I didn't decide. I responded. To what? To a situation that was already in motion long before tonight. The elevator opened into a wide, minimalist living space. Glass walls overlooked the city, lights stretching endlessly below them like a map of stars. Everything was immaculate, untouched, more fortress than home. Lena stopped just inside the doorway. This is temporary, she said, needing it to be true. Enrico didn't correct her. He removed his jacket and set it aside, movements unhurried. You're safe here, he said. For now. For now, she repeated. Meaning what? Meaning, Enrico replied, that I need to understand exactly how much you know. Lena crossed her arms. I already told you, I don't know anything. Enrico's gaze sharpened. Not accusatory, but focused. People who truly know nothing rarely say it so quickly. The comment irritated her more than it frightened her. I'm tired, she said. I was publicly humiliated tonight, dragged into a car, and brought somewhere I didn't agree to be. If you're going to interrogate me, at least be honest about it. Something like approval flickered briefly in his eyes. Fair, he said. He gestured for her to sit. She chose the edge of a sofa, posture rigid, ready to stand again if needed. Enrico remained standing, towering without trying to. What's your full name? He asked. You already know it. Say it anyway. Lena Carver. Age? 26. Occupation? Art restoration, she said sharply. Paintings, sculptures, nothing illegal. Enrico nodded. You work with the Delmont Gallery. You specialize in Renaissance-era materials. You prefer restoration over original commissions. You commute by train, not car. You live alone. Lena's breath caught. She hadn't told him any of that. You stop for coffee every morning at the same place, he continued calmly. You call your mother every Sunday. You don't drink much. You haven't dated anyone seriously since Marco. Her pulse thundered. That's enough, she said. Enrico stopped. The silence that followed stretched, not tense, but weighted. You don't disappear easily, he said after a moment. You leave patterns. Patterns attract attention. From who? Lena demanded. Enrico studied her. People who recognize names. People who collect leverage. My father was a school teacher, Lena said. He didn't have enemies. Enrico's voice was gentle when he answered. He wasn't the enemy. He was collateral. The word made her feel sick. You're telling me my life is in danger because of something I didn't even know existed, she said. And I'm just supposed to trust you. Enrico met her gaze steadily. No, you're supposed to survive. She stood abruptly. You claimed me, in front of everyone, without asking. Do you know what that does to someone like me? I do, he said. That surprised her. It takes your choices, she continued. It makes you an object. Enrico stepped closer, but stopped short, giving her space even as his presence filled it. I didn't claim you because I wanted to own you, he said. I claimed you because someone else already thought they did. Lena's anger faltered, confusion replacing it. Marco, Enrico continued, did more than humiliate you tonight. He spoke when he should have stayed silent. He sold information that was never his to sell. Lena's stomach dropped. Information about who? Enrico held her gaze. About you. The weight of that settled slowly, painfully. I don't understand, she whispered. You will, Enrico said. Sooner than you'd like. She looked around the penthouse, the height, the glass, the invisible lines of security she could feel but not see. This feels like a prison, she said. Enrico's expression didn't change. No, he replied. This is a shield. Lena laughed softly, humorless. And what are you? Enrico's answer was immediate. The reason it holds. The words sent a chill down her spine. For the first time, Lena truly understood that Enrico Vitale wasn't watching her out of curiosity. He was watching her because somehow she mattered. And whatever had been set in motion tonight, it was far bigger than a broken engagement. The truth didn't arrive all at once. It crept in slowly, like cold seeping through stone, unavoidable, numbing, and impossible to ignore once it settled. Lena didn't sleep that night. She lay awake in a guest room that felt more like a hotel suite than a bedroom, staring at the ceiling while the city glowed silently beyond floor-to-ceiling glass. Everything smelled clean, new, untouched. It should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like standing on the edge of something vast and unseen. Sometime before dawn, the door opened quietly. Enrico didn't knock. He didn't need to. He stood in the doorway, composed as ever, dressed as if the night hadn't happened at all, as if her life hadn't tilted off its axis. You should eat, he said. Lena sat up slowly. I want answers. He inclined his head. Then you should listen. They moved into the kitchen, sleek, minimalist, designed for function rather than warmth. Coffee was already waiting, food laid out with care she hadn't expected. Lena didn't touch any of it. You said my father was collateral, she said. Explain that. Enrico didn't sugarcoat it. Your father borrowed money, he said. Not from a bank. Not from people who forgive late payments. Lena shook her head. That's not possible. He barely made enough to survive, Enrico finished calmly. Which is exactly why he borrowed. She swallowed. For what? Enrico hesitated for the first time. Protection, he said. He saw something, heard something. It made him afraid. Lena felt the room tilt. From who? A syndicate that no longer exists, Enrico replied, because someone like me replaced it. The words carried no pride, just fact. He couldn't pay it back, Enrico continued. So he disappeared from their notice. For a while, Lena's hands trembled. He died of a heart attack. So the report said. Silence swallowed the space between them. After his death, Enrico said. The debt should have died with him. It usually does. Usually, Lena echoed. Except, Enrico went on, someone reminded the wrong people that he had a daughter. The realization struck hard and sharp. Marco, Lena whispered. Enrico nodded once. He sold your name, he said. Your address, your routines. He didn't know what it meant. He thought it was just information. Lena pressed a hand to her chest, breathing shallow. Why? Because he was afraid, Enrico said. And because he thought you were expendable. The betrayal cut deeper than humiliation ever could. He humiliated me, she said numbly. Yes, Enrico agreed, and he marked you. Lena looked at him then, really looked. You didn't step in because you felt sorry for me. No, you stepped in because I became a liability. Enrico met her gaze evenly. Yes. The honesty stung, but it grounded her. And now, she asked? Now, Enrico said. You're a message. She frowned. To who? To everyone who would consider collecting what they think is owed, he replied. I claimed you publicly because it tells them something very specific. What? That touching you, Enrico said quietly, is a declaration of war. Fear settled deep in her bones. And the cost? Lena asked. Protection always has one. Enrico didn't deny it. You stay close, he said. You follow rules. You don't disappear. You don't lie. And if I refuse? Enrico's voice softened, but his words didn't. Then I can't guarantee what happens next. Lena looked down at her hands. Her father's ghost suddenly felt heavier, less distant. A man she thought she understood, now rewritten by secrets she never knew to question. I didn't ask for this, she said. No, Enrico agreed. You didn't. A pause. But the world doesn't care what we ask for, he added. Only what we owe. The words settled painfully. Lena stood, shaky but resolute. Then tell me the truth, she said. All of it. No more pieces. Enrico studied her for a long moment. You'll get it, he said, but not all at once. She scoffed weakly. Why? Because some truths, Enrico replied, change people. Lena turned toward the windows, watching the city wake beneath them. Her father's past had reached out from the grave and wrapped itself around her throat, and Enrico Vitale was the only thing standing between her and whatever came to collect. Danger didn't announce itself. It never did. It crept in quietly, disguised as coincidence. Hiding in the spaces between moments, Lena almost convinced herself she was safe. The day passed with an unnatural stillness. No alarms, no threats. Just the low hum of a building that breathed security into every wall. Guards remained distant and unobtrusive. Enrico came and went without explanation, leaving behind the faint sense that the air itself rearranged when he moved. Lena tried to ground herself in routine. She showered, changed clothes that weren't hers, drank coffee she barely tasted. She stood by the glass windows and watched the city below, trying to remember what it felt like to belong to it. By evening, exhaustion began to dull the edge of her fear. That was when the message arrived. It wasn't a call. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't even addressed to her. One of the guards spoke quietly into his earpiece and froze mid-step. Another shifted position near the door, tension tightening his posture. The atmosphere changed so subtly, Lena almost missed it. Almost. Enrico returned minutes later. His calm was different this time, not composed, but compressed, like violence folded tightly into stillness. What is it? Lena asked. He didn't answer right away. His gaze swept the room, checking exits, angles, reflections in the glass. Pack a bag, he said. Her pulse jumped. What? Just essentials, he continued. We're leaving. I thought you said I was safe here. You were, Enrico replied. Past tense. The words landed hard. What happened? Lena pressed. Enrico crossed the room, stopping in front of her. Someone tested the perimeter. Her stomach dropped. Inside the building. No, he said. That would be sloppy. Then what? A question, Enrico replied. A reminder. Lena wrapped her arms around herself. From who? Enrico's jaw tightened. From people who don't care that your father is dead. Only that his debt isn't. The weight of that settled cold and sharp. You said claiming me would stop them, Lena said. It slowed them, Enrico corrected. But it also made you visible. So what happens now? She asked. Enrico's gaze darkened. Now they see how serious I am. Movement erupted around them. Guards communicating, doors opening, instructions murmured with precision. The penthouse no longer felt like a shield. It felt like a target. Lena hurried into the bedroom, hands shaking as she stuffed clothes into a bag she hadn't chosen. Her thoughts raced. Her apartment, her job, her mother. My mom, she said when Enrico appeared in the doorway. She doesn't know any of this. She won't be touched, Enrico said immediately. I've already made sure of that. The speed of his response scared her more than reassurance should have. How? She asked. Because, Enrico said, I don't make threats I can't enforce. They moved quickly, through service corridors, into another elevator, out through a different garage. This car was less visible, less polished, purpose-built. As the doors closed, Lena looked at Enrico. Where are we going? Somewhere quieter, he replied. Somewhere I can see every road that leads to you. The city blurred past again, darker this time. Streets narrowed, lights thinned. Are they following us? She asked. Yes, Enrico said. Her breath hitched. Then why aren't we? Because I want them to know, Enrico cut in calmly, that I'm not running. The car took a sharp turn, then another. The driver moved with confident precision. Lena's heart pounded. What happens if they get to me? She whispered. Enrico didn't hesitate. They won't. There was no bravado in his voice, only certainty. The car disappeared into the night, carrying Lena farther from everything she recognized, and deeper into a war she never asked to be part of. And for the first time, she understood something terrifying. Enrico Vitale wasn't protecting her because he was kind. He was protecting her because someone else had decided she was worth fighting over. The place they took her didn't feel like a destination. It felt like disappearance. The car left the city behind, lights thinning into darkness, roads stretching longer and quieter. Lena lost track of time somewhere between fear and exhaustion. Her body stayed tense long after the engine finally slowed. When the doors opened, the air was different. Cleaner, colder, quieter. They were no longer surrounded by concrete and glass, but by space. Wide, controlled, deliberately empty. The building rose out of the darkness like something designed not to be seen unless you were meant to see it. A safe house. Not the kind from movies. No grandeur, no opulence. Just layered security and silence thick enough to swallow secrets. Inside, everything was simple and functional. Soft lighting, clean lines, no personal touches. This wasn't where people lived. This was where they survived. You'll be safe here, Enrico said again, but this time the words held weight. Lena nodded numbly. A woman, older, calm, unarmed, showed her to a bedroom. Fresh clothes waited on the bed. Food already prepared. Water beside it. Care without intimacy. Enrico didn't follow her inside. That detail mattered more than she expected. Later, after showering and changing, Lena sat on the edge of the bed, her body finally beginning to register how tired it was. She hadn't realized how much fear she'd been carrying until it started to loosen its grip. She slept, deeply, for the first time since the restaurant. When she woke, light filtered softly through the curtains. Morning had arrived without chaos, without shouting, without danger. For a moment, she almost forgot. Then reality returned, slow and heavy. She moved cautiously through the space, aware of eyes even when she couldn't see them. Enrico was in the kitchen when she entered, already awake, already composed. He looked up briefly. You slept. It wasn't a question. Yes, she replied. I didn't mean to. A corner of his mouth almost lifted. Your body needed it. That unsettled her more than it should have. She ate in silence while he reviewed something on a tablet. The domesticity of the moment felt surreal, like playing house in the middle of a war. How long will I be here? Lena asked. As long as necessary, Enrico said. She set her fork down. And if I hate it? You're allowed to, he replied. The answer caught her off guard. She expected dismissal, control, command. Instead, he met her gaze steadily. I don't expect gratitude, Enrico said. Only cooperation. Lena studied him. You don't touch me, she said quietly. No, he agreed. Why? Because, Enrico said, fear complicates things. She exhaled slowly. Days passed, not idle ones, structured, controlled, but calm. Lena learned the rhythm of the place, learned where she could walk, learned that Enrico was always nearby, even when unseen. He gave her space, but he never left her unprotected. Meals were shared, conversations cautious at first, then gradually less so. He asked about her work, really listened when she explained restoration, patience, the art of repairing something without erasing its history. You preserve damage, he observed once. I preserve truth, she corrected. That stayed with him. At night, Lena found herself listening for his footsteps, without realizing she was doing it, comforted by their predictability. The cage hadn't vanished, but its bars no longer cut into her skin. And that frightened her more than fear ever had, because safety, once tasted, was dangerously easy to crave. The conversation happened by accident. That was how most truths did. Night had settled quietly around the safe house, the kind of night that felt suspended. No sirens, no distant traffic, just wind brushing against glass. Lena couldn't sleep, not from fear this time, but from the unfamiliar sensation of stillness. She found Enrico in the kitchen, the lights dimmed, a single lamp casting long shadows across the floor. He was alone, not issuing orders, not watching screens, just standing there, hands braced against the counter, staring into nothing. He looked tired. The realization softened something in her chest before she could stop it. "You don't sleep much," she said quietly. Enrico didn't turn. "Sleep is a habit I never learned properly." She hesitated, then stepped closer. The space between them felt different now, not charged with threat, but with something unspoken. "Why?" she asked. He was silent for a long moment. "Because," he said finally, "sleep requires trust." That answer stayed with her. They sat at the small table, not facing each other, but angled just enough to share space without pressure. The silence between them no longer felt like a test. Lena spoke first. "My mother raised me alone," she said. "After my father died. She never complained, just kept going." Enrico listened. "She taught me that needing people was dangerous," Lena continued. "That love was something you earned by being useful, quiet, good." Her voice wavered, just slightly. "I didn't realize how lonely that made me until tonight," she admitted. Enrico's jaw tightened. "I was 10 when I learned what loyalty really meant," he said. Lena turned toward him. "My family believed in blood above all else," he continued. "They believed it justified anything." His voice was steady, but something brittle lived underneath it. "One night someone betrayed us, someone we trusted. I survived because I didn't hesitate." Lena's breath caught. "And the others?" They hesitated, Enrico said simply. The weight of the words pressed down on the room. "That's when I learned," he went on, "that mercy is a weakness men pay for with their lives." Lena didn't interrupt. "I became what was necessary," Enrico said. "Not because I wanted power, but because power was the only thing that kept people alive." "People," Lena repeated softly. "Or you." Enrico met her gaze. "For a long time," he admitted, "I couldn't tell the difference." The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was reverent. Lena realized then that the monster everyone feared was built from loss and blood and choices made too early. That dominance wasn't his nature. It was his armor. "You don't scare me," she said, before she could stop herself. The truth startled them both. Enrico studied her, searching for fear and finding none. "You should be careful saying that," he said. "I am careful," Lena replied. "That's why I know the difference between someone dangerous and someone broken." The words landed softly. Enrico looked away first. For the first time, Lena saw the cracks, not in his control, but in his certainty. And she understood something crucial. He wasn't protecting her because he owned her. He was protecting her because losing her would reopen wounds he'd never allowed to heal. Love didn't arrive like a storm. It crept in quietly, disguised as routine. Days settled into a rhythm neither of them acknowledged out loud. Mornings began with shared silence and coffee neither commented on. Afternoons passed with Lena reading or sketching while Enrico handled business just out of earshot. Evenings brought meals eaten across from one another, conversation drifting from guarded to almost normal. Almost. The danger hadn't vanished. Guards still rotated, routes still changed. Enrico still checked exits with unconscious precision. But something else was changing. Lena began to notice the small things. The way Enrico always positioned himself between her and doors without making it obvious. The way he slowed his pace to match hers, even when he didn't need to. The way he listened, not just to her words, but to the spaces between them. He noticed things too. When she stopped touching her food because she was overwhelmed. When she retreated into silence after speaking to her mother on the phone. When nightmares woke her, even though she never told him. One evening, he left a blanket draped over the chair near her bed, without a word. She found herself smiling at it. That realization frightened her more than gunfire ever could. They never crossed the line, not once. Their hands brushed occasionally, passing a cup, reaching for the same book, and each time, the contact lingered just long enough to matter before pulling away. Restraint became its own language. Lena began to feel something she hadn't allowed herself in years. Wanted, not used. not protected out of obligation, wanted. And Enrico felt it too. He felt it in the way his attention sharpened when she entered a room, in the way his control tightened whenever someone else spoke her name, in the way desire became something he managed like a threat, contained, calculated, never unleashed. Because if he crossed that line, there would be no going back. One night, they stood on the balcony, the sky heavy with stars. The world beyond the walls felt impossibly far away. "I don't know who I am outside of survival," Lena said quietly. Enrico's voice was low. "You're allowed to learn." She looked at him then, really looked. At the man who had claimed her without asking. At the man who now asked permission with his silence. And in that moment, Lena realized something terrifying. She was falling in love. Not with the myth, not with the power, but with the man who chose restraint when he could have chosen possession. And Enrico Vitale, who had never believed in love, found himself losing a battle he didn't know how to win. The truth arrived in a voice not meant for her ears. Lena had been wandering the hallways of the safe house, restless as always, when she paused near the study. Voices drifted through the slightly ajar door, Enrico speaking to one of his lieutenants. She hadn't intended to eavesdrop, but something in the tone, the gravity, made her stop. "She's not just important because of the debt," Enrico said quietly. She's the one person I can't afford to lose." A chill slid down Lena's spine. She froze. "She has to be protected at all costs," the lieutenant replied, "even if that means moving the others aside." Enrico's voice softened, not affection exactly, but unmistakably personal. "I never thought I'd feel this way about anyone, but she's mine, completely, and if anyone touches her, I swear." Lena's hands clenched the doorway. Her chest felt tight. Heat rushed to her face. The man who had claimed her, protected her, dominated every corner of her life for weeks. He was talking about her like she was the center of his world. She stumbled back, retreating to her room. Heart pounding, thoughts racing. She had known she felt something for him. Something dangerous, overwhelming, intoxicating. But hearing him say it, unfiltered, honest, intended for someone else, it shattered her carefully constructed walls. Lena pressed her hands to her face. She wanted to run. She wanted to scream. She wanted to convince herself that she hadn't just overheard a confession that could ruin her composure forever. Instead, she did the only thing she could. She waited. Later, when Enrico returned to the room, she avoided his gaze. She busied herself with arranging books, smoothing clothes, pretending indifference. He noticed. Of course he noticed. He always did. "Something's on your mind," he said quietly, approaching her. Lena swallowed. I didn't hear anything," she lied weakly. Enrico's eyes narrowed, not accusing, just aware. "You did." Her stomach clenched. It doesn't matter." "It does," he said, "because it's the truth, and you need to know mine." Her hands shook slightly. "I shouldn't care," she whispered. "I shouldn't feel—" "You already do," Enrico interrupted softly. "And you will. That's the risk you take being near me." The weight of his words pressed down. She realized she had crossed an invisible line without noticing, her heart already entangled with his. And now, knowing he felt the same, it was impossible to go back. The walls she built around her heart weren't gone. Not yet. But cracks were forming, delicate yet undeniable. Because for the first time, she understood. This was no longer just survival. This was a slow burning surrender. The night was quiet, but it felt impossibly alive. Lena stood by the balcony, the city stretching beneath them like a sea of lights, stars mirrored on glass and asphalt. The air was cool, crisp, yet charged with something neither of them had named aloud until now. Enrico emerged from the study behind her. He didn't approach immediately, simply stood a few steps away, watching, waiting. The distance felt deliberate, but intimate, as if the space between them had meaning. "I can't stop thinking about you," he said finally, his voice low, steady, carrying the weight of weeks unsaid. Lena's chest tightened. She wanted to look away, to deny it, to remind herself that he was dangerous, that this was wrong, that she didn't belong in this world. "I shouldn't," she whispered. "I shouldn't feel this, not for you." You shouldn't, he agreed, stepping closer now. But you do, and I can't stop either. The words hung between them, heavy with the promise of everything they hadn't yet allowed themselves to feel. You've claimed me, Lena said, her voice trembling, from the very first night. And you've let me, Enrico replied, stopping just close enough for her to feel his warmth. Every glance you thought went unnoticed, every step you hesitated on, I've seen it all. I haven't forced you, I've waited. Because you matter, more than anyone else ever has. Lena's lips parted. Her throat was dry. But you're dangerous. I shouldn't. You're safe with me, he interrupted, softer now. Safe doesn't mean easy, but it means I will never let you go where I can't follow. I will never let you face this world alone. Her heart raced, defiance and longing warring inside her. I shouldn't love you, she admitted finally. But I do. Enrico reached out slowly, hesitating for the briefest fraction of a second to let her consent, to let her choice exist. His hand found hers, warm, solid, grounding. I shouldn't either, he said quietly. But I can't help it. You're mine, Lena, not by force, but because of this. He gestured to the space between their hands. Because of everything you are. Her resolve broke. She let herself lean in, step closer. Their foreheads touched first. A delicate bridge, a gentle promise. Then lips met. Not rushed, not frantic, but full of the tension that had built over weeks, months, a lifetime compressed into a single electric moment. When they finally pulled back slightly, breathing shared, hearts pounding, Lena whispered, I choose you. Enrico's dark eyes softened for the first time. And I choose you, he said. Every day, in every way. The city below continued, indifferent. But above, in the quiet of a hidden sanctuary, two hearts finally spoke the words they had both denied for too long. Love did not make the world kinder. It made it louder. The morning after their confession arrived without softness. No gentle easing into happiness. No illusion that love could pause war. The city woke sharp and unforgiving, and Enrico Vitale woke already dressed for violence. Lena sensed it before she saw it. The shift in him. The stillness that replaced tenderness. The way his jaw tightened. How his movements became precise, economical. The man who had kissed her the night before did not disappear. He locked himself away behind something older, something lethal. There's movement, Enrico said, his voice calm as stone. He didn't look at her when he spoke. The rival syndicate, Marco's buyers. They're making their final play. Lena's stomach dropped. Marco's name still burned like a bruise. They're coming here. They're trying to, Enrico replied. They won't succeed? She stepped closer, fear threading through her resolve. What does that mean? It means this ends today. Enrico turned to her then, and for a moment she saw both men at once, the ruthless king and the man who loved her. He cupped her face gently, as if memorizing her. You will stay here, he said, with guards, no windows open, no arguments. I won't be hidden like a secret, Lena said quietly. You are not a secret, he replied. You are my weakness, and that makes you a target. The words should have frightened her. Instead, they grounded her. I trust you, she said. But you come back. His thumb brushed her cheek. I always do. The operation unfolded far from Lena's eyes, but she felt every second of it. The hours stretched tight. Every sound in the penthouse echoed. Every footstep made her heart race. Below the city, Enrico moved like a storm-given form. The rival syndicate had underestimated him. They believed love had softened him, that claiming a woman had distracted the predator. They were wrong. Enrico didn't arrive with chaos. He arrived with certainty. Doors opened because his name preceded him. Guns lowered because fear traveled faster than bullets. Marco was found shaking, pleading, already broken by the men who realized too late that selling information tied to Lena's father had sealed their fate. Enrico didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. This ends now, he said. By nightfall, the rival syndicate ceased to exist in any form that mattered. Accounts frozen, leaders silenced, alliances dissolved overnight. Marco disappeared into obscurity, his humiliation finally complete, this time without witnesses, without dignity, without redemption. When Enrico returned, bloodless but carrying the weight of finality, Lena was waiting. She didn't run to him. She didn't cry. She simply walked into his arms. "It's over," he said into her hair. She closed her eyes. "I know." The city exhaled. The threat dissolved like smoke. For the first time since the restaurant, since the chandelier-lit humiliation that started everything, Lena felt something unfamiliar. Safety, not borrowed, not temporary, earned. The dawn was gentle, washing gold and rose across the city. The night's chaos had receded, leaving only quiet, leaving only choice. Lena stood at the balcony, hands resting lightly on the railing, eyes tracing the streets far below. The weight of everything, humiliation, danger, fear, and survival, pressed on her chest. But for the first time it felt manageable, not because she was alone, but because she was no longer unprotected. Enrico emerged from the shadows behind her, silent as ever, but this time without the tension that had accompanied him for weeks. He stopped a step away, allowing her the space to breathe, to consider, to decide. "You're quiet," he said softly, thinking. She turned to face him, meeting the intensity of his gaze, and in that moment understood the depth of her own feelings. "I'm choosing," she said, voice steady. "Not because I have to, not because I'm afraid, but because I want to. I choose you." Enrico's expression softened for the first time fully, relief and something like wonder passing over his face. He stepped closer, closing the distance gently. "Not because you need protection," Lena continued. "Not because you said I'm yours, but because I want to stand beside you, on my terms." He reached for her hand, fingers intertwining naturally. "Then we move forward together," he said. "No secrets, no pretenses, only honesty and choice." Her heart swelled, the culmination of fear, longing, and love distilled into one simple truth. She was no longer a passive participant in her own story. "On my terms," she repeated. "On your terms," Enrico agreed. They stood together, overlooking the city that had tried to define them both. Her life in fragments, his world in shadows, and for the first time, the skyline didn't feel threatening. It felt like possibility. Because love, when chosen freely, could be stronger than fear. Because she had chosen him, and he had chosen her. For the first time, they were equals, not just protector and protected, not just predator and prey, but two people bound by choice, by trust, by something more permanent than danger. The city moved below them, oblivious to the union forged above its streets. And for Lena Carver and for Enrico Vitali, that choice was everything. The morning was soft, almost surreal. Light filtered through the penthouse windows, dust motes dancing in golden rays, as if the world itself had paused to watch. Lena stood beside Enrico, their hands intertwined, feeling the warmth of a connection that had grown from fear, tension, and survival into something irrevocable. The city below bustled, indifferent to the battles won, the secrets revealed, or the love claimed in silence and shadow. They didn't need words. The quiet between them was enough. A shared heartbeat, a mutual understanding, a promise unspoken but unbreakable. Enrico pulled her gently toward the living space. "Home isn't just a place," he said softly. "It's being seen, chosen, loved." Lena smiled, a genuine smile that had been rare for so long. "And I am," she whispered. A small ceremony followed days later, not extravagant, not for the world's eyes. Just the safe house staff, a few trusted allies, and the knowledge that this union was built on choice, respect, and the fire of survival. She wore a simple dress, the folds flowing like water, unadorned but radiant. Enrico's suit was sharp, tailored to perfection, yet softened by the faintest trace of tenderness in his gaze. When they exchanged rings, it was more than a symbol. It was a vow, to protect, to honor, to choose each other every day, regardless of danger, regardless of past shadows. The city still hummed outside, still whispered secrets and danger. But inside, they had built something impervious. A bond forged not from fear, but from understanding, from slow-burning trust, from love earned in moments of vulnerability and courage. Lena leaned against Enrico as they looked out over the skyline together. "We survived," she murmured. He kissed the top of her head, voice low, uncharacteristically gentle. And we will continue to, together. The camera of the mind fades slowly, lingering on the couple standing united, strong yet tender. The city's chaos now distant. Their world, once fractured, once haunted, is now theirs, defined by love chosen, battles fought, and the knowledge that some things are worth claiming. A shadow flickers on the far rooftop of the city skyline. Enrico's eyes narrow slightly. Lena leans into him. "What now?" she asks. He smiles faintly. "Now, we watch." Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support helps me bring you even more emotional, heartwarming stories filled with love, tension, and unforgettable moments. Stay tuned. More beautiful stories are on the way.